Hello. It looks like we are live. How's everybody doing today? I have been working at getting this camera to work. I set everything up with the computer, trying to get a different, better angle, and just when I was ready to start, it's not working. So I had to scratch that and start all over again, but here we are. Hello, Paul. We got people starting to join. Hello everybody, welcome to the Finding Your Light Devo. Today, Thursday, November 2nd. Very exciting. I can't remember which one this is. I think it might be the 5th one. We missed one last week because I was so sick. Sorry about that, guys, but I'm still kind of sick, but not like I was. So I'm super thankful. I know a lot of people are sick. I've been seeing in my feed. Everybody's posting, I got a fever. So I'm praying for everybody. Pray for me too. We're going to get this stuff cleared out. It's probably the change in the weather or whatever. But anyhow, I'm feeling back in working order. And so we're going to do the Devo today. And I'm excited about it today. It's a very, I don't know, it's kind of a topic we don't talk about a lot in the church, I don't think. And I think that's a huge mistake. And so I'm excited to discuss it today because it's something that has been like a huge thing in my life, and I know in the lives of a lot of people who I talk to, and I've been blessed enough to be able to connect with through Fireflight. So the verse that we're going to talk about today is from Psalms, and it is, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle, and you have recorded each one in your book." And that's Psalm 56:8. And that's kind of an obscure verse. It's kind of an obscure verse compared to the ones that we've done before. But I think overall it can have a really huge impact in our lives. That's why I want to talk about it. What I want to talk about today is our emotions, mostly kind of like negative emotions. And when I say negative, I'm not trying to say that some emotions are better than others, but just the ones that we tend to like a little bit less. Things like sadness and anger. And I bring up anger because I think that real anger always ends up being able to be traced back to sadness, which is something I learned in all the counseling that I've been through, trying to straighten all my issues out. So anyhow, mostly we'll be talking about sadness because it's a pretty big category. And this verse really means a lot to me because it talks about how God is paying attention, not just to our good days, not just, when we make huge mistakes or whatever, when we screw up. He's paying attention even when we're just sad, and when things are hurting us and when we're struggling. And so much so, that it could be said that he's collected all of our tears in a bottle. In a particularly dark time in my life, a wonderful woman who I went to church with, she'd been praying for me. She knew that I was struggling, and she came to me and she gave me a sweet little gift, and it was this tiny little crystal bottle. And attached to the crystal bottle was a tag, and it had this verse on it, talking about how God has collected all of our tears in his bottle. And it meant so much to me because I really felt seen and understood by God. And when you're in a time of sadness, it can be very hard to feel understood by anybody. And I think that's one thing that's a huge blessing to those of us who follow God and stay close to God, because we can understand and know that with God we have someone who knows us fully and understands us completely, and we're never truly alone. So I want to take things back, as I usually do, back to our childhoods. When we're talking about sadness, we get a lot of messages about our emotions, even from when we're very little, and we don't even remember the things that were said to us. But as we get older, we continue to hear messages about our emotions, and a lot of times they're negative or putting them down. Is what I mean by that. So for instance, you hear all these messages like stop crying or don't be a baby. There's even a song that says big girls don't cry, and if you think big girls can't cry, just forget about men. Men are definitely not allowed to cry. It's shown as a sign of weakness, and I'm sure we've seen, if you didn't experience it in your own lives, I'm sure you happened to other people. You've seen people being put down if they're crying, especially on the playground. Tons of movies I've seen where, it's always this recurring theme, and I think it's because everybody experiences it, where either you've been somewhere and you've been crying, or someone you've seen has been crying, and other people have just been beating them down because of it, making them feel like nothing. And I think it's probably because of the little messages we get when we're small that carries over into anxiety as we get older. And we feel this feeling that we should be embarrassed to cry. and maybe even ashamed. And so we try not to cry. And we especially try never to cry in public. And if we do cry, we'll go into private and we'll hide in shame, really. It's so sad. It's making me very sad just talking about it. I'm sure we've all had a moment where we felt like we just had to flee. And I think it's because when we're crying, we feel so vulnerable. Because as we go about our daily lives, we go to work, we do this, that, and the other, a lot of times we're able to compartmentalize how we're feeling with what we're doing. But when you're crying, how you're feeling and what you're doing, it's all the same thing. And you feel like you've got no safety net and no barrier. And it really is maybe one of the most vulnerable times in our lives. So in this world we live in, it can be really scary to be vulnerable. And it feels like, you know, just like when the dog rolls over and shows this nice soft belly for you to pet it, you know, it can only do that to people it trusts because it's dangerous to be vulnerable with people you don't know. So in the same way, we would probably dare not cry in front of anybody that we didn't know if we had, you know, if we got to make all the calls. So unfortunately, because there's all this negative connotation with our emotions, sadness, things like that, we tend to try to hide it. And we put on a happy face. I'm really good at happy faces. It's one of my spiritual gifts is pretending to be happy. That's sarcastic. But most of my life, I know I would have so much inner turmoil going on, starting from when I was really young. My brother passed away. A lot of you probably already know that. But when I was young, when I was 7 years old, my brother died and turned my whole family into a tailspin, into all sorts of just penultimate grief. And I hid it, you know. I cried for a little while, but then I just tried to pretend everything was fine because I wanted to pretend it was fine, and I wanted it to be over. I didn't want to be dealing with it anymore, but there was no way to take it back and no way to get away from it. So I would just put on this mask, and I would just be like, think your happy thoughts and try to make everybody else happy. That'll be a good idea, and everything will be good if you just pretend that, you know, fake it till you make it. But all that sadness just stayed inside of me, and it got buried deep. And I think it makes me think of the way the body, if there's some kind of infection inside, sometimes it'll try to like build a barrier and just keep covering and covering with a barrier and barrier and barrier. And I think that's how some tumors and cysts come along and stuff like that. And the same thing you can do with your emotions. You create this shell and this mask, and before you know it, it's almost like you're two different people, because you have the person who you are, who keeps it together in front of everybody else, and then when you're all by yourself, you're this other person where you are just miserable inside, and you can get so far down that road that you're so separated from your emotions that you don't even really understand how you're feeling anymore. And when this happens, a lot of people especially will translate this sadness, this unhappiness inside into anger. And they'll be looking for, I don't feel good. I feel uncomfortable. What's making me uncomfortable? Let me look around and find out what it is. And then they will find it. Because when you look for trouble, you find it, right? And then it's like everywhere they turn, they're upset, they're angry. So-and-so did this, you know, this company did this, and now they just live this life of anger, and it seems like they're just an angry person, but really they're probably just deep down a really sad person on the inside. And that's all because they held it in, and they hid it, and they thought they were being strong, but all they did was poison themselves. This is a really big deal. A lot of people you know, maybe even yourself, might be suffering from this right now. Maybe you know people who seem to be just sour all the time. And I mean, stuff like this can go so far as to where people just become filled with darkness, and they're trying to seek ways to fill up this void and to feel better any way that they can, and it just goes down a darker and darker and darker road. And that's how we get, I think, just the major evil in our world, is people taking the sadness, bottling it up, covering it over. It turns into anger, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse, like a snowball effect. So, I think that sadness is a really big deal, and it's something we need to talk about more. And obviously we can't go through and stop all the bad things from happening in this world that make us sad. We can't. This is life. We live in a fallen world, and bad things happen every day. We all make mistakes every day. Those all have an effect on our own lives, on the lives of other people. And there's no way to avoid it. But what we could do is start to create a safe place for the people in our lives, everyone that we interact with, to be able to be honest and to be able to share their sadness. Because if you don't let it out, it doesn't just go away. It builds and it back builds and it becomes darker and uglier and worse over time. And we have here proof in the Bible that God cares about our sadness. He doesn't want us to ignore it. He doesn't want us to hide it. It's so important to him, that it could be said that he has recorded each of our tears in his book. That's how much he loves us. And I know when my child is sad, it's important to me, even when I'm like, listen, you can't have a lollipop now. Stop crying. There I am. Stop crying, So we have to look at the messages we give to other people, to our children, generation on generation, the things that we're saying to them. We need to give a safe place for people to be sad when they're sad and to let it all out. Because we need to let the pain out, because we don't want to keep it. We want to let it out and make room for new joy. And that's so important in our lives. And we can't just pretend that we're so strong that we never get sad, and that there's nothing there, because it's just not true. It's lying. And if we live a lie, we become more in bondage. The Bible says that, the truth will set you free. So the opposite is living a lie will chain you down and pile more and more chains on you over time. And you'll get so bogged down, you'll feel like there's no hope. And I have been there. I have felt just permanently broken. Well, I wish I'd done something about this earlier, because now it's just too late. I've been there. I felt that way and been ready to give up about it. So just know that there's so many people who have been where you are now. I can see on my feed, there's tons of people who are suffering from loss, people who have passed away, and it's happening every day. So all over, there's this great need for love and compassion for each other. So I want to really encourage you guys to be loving and compassionate with other people in their sadness, and just give them a safe place to be able to express that sadness, to encourage it, and also to be a safe place for yourself. Don't give yourself these negative images and negative messages that have been fed to you since you were little about how you need to pretend like you're a stone, and that you're worthless, or you should be embarrassed and ashamed when you're sad. Don't buy into those lies, because our tears, they come to celebrate the importance of what has been lost. And if we just hold them back or pretend they're not there, or we don't honor that, we dishonor our right to hope and to dream, and to be sad when things don't work out, because that's the human experience. That's what we're all going through. So I just want to encourage you guys today, and let you know that I love you, and that God loves you so much. And I know that we might be miles and miles apart, and that we don't get to see each other every day, things like that, but at the same time, I've been through a lot. I know you're going through a lot, and that I feel that in my heart, and I know that we're all together in what we're facing. And so in that way, we truly are one big family. We are all God's children, and we have an incredible Father who loves us so much, who understands what we're feeling, what we're going through, and he wants to keep working in us to create a new creation, and to help us to be overcomers and victors and people who rise above. And we can do that. We really can, because it's with his power, not our own. But if we are going to step in between God's hand of help reaching out to us to help us heal, and say, nope, I don't want it. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm strong. I don't care. And we want to live that lie. That's what we're going to get. We're going to bottle all that sadness inside. We're going to bury it so deep to where we can't even feel it anymore. We don't even know why we feel agitated, why we feel upset. We'll look for other reasons. We'll look for something to blame. And we'll live our life in that reactivity and that anger, taking it out on everybody else. And we'll create everybody else's bad days. And the gift will go on. What a terrible gift. Instead, let's accept God's gift of healing. Let's be willing to let the sadness out, to find the help that we need. If you need counseling, if you've been through something that's a big deal, even if other people might not think it's a big deal, if it's a big deal to you, then get some help. I was in counseling for over a year. I just got to see my counselor like a couple months ago. She came to town, and I got to visit with her. So happy. And I'll tell you, every time I went to counseling, it was like I had to drag myself there. I was terrified. I don't know why I had this fear. I probably was the enemy trying to stop me from doing something good. If you need help because you're going through something that's a big deal, go get that help. Don't be scared, because there's nothing weaker than allowing yourself to just get worse and worse instead of being brave and getting the help that you need and admitting that you need help, because we all need help. No, the whole population of the world did not go to school to learn how to deal with trauma and how to process it. We just didn't, even counselors who have to go to counseling in order to be able to work on themselves, because, sometimes you're too close to the problem to be able to see clearly. So go and get the help that you need. Read books, always be learning, always be growing, and always be opening your hands up in love to others. Give them a safe place to be able to express their sadness and to heal and to grow. And you'll be able to find safe places for yourself too if you do that, because a lot of times you reap what you sow. That's why they put it in the Bible, because it's true. So back over our verse for today. Psalm 56:8 says, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book." Our sadness and our hurt and our loss is important to God, and He wants us to heal. He wants us to do what we need to do to heal, to get the help when we need it, to be always giving it over to Him and trusting in Him and receiving His gift of unconditional love for us, and to be open-handed, ready to accept the new joy that's coming. So I'm praying for you guys. Pray for me too. I'm hoping that I won't be completely congested by next week. That's my personal goal. And thanks so much for tuning in. It's going to be on YouTube later. If you want to send friends to a YouTube instead of a Facebook video, maybe a little easier. If you want to share it here on Facebook, please. The more you share it, the more people hear. Hopefully the more people get encouraged. That's the goal of this, to encourage people and to help people know God's love. That's the #1 goal. So please share this on your feeds of your Facebook. I think there's a little button to say share, or you can send people to the YouTube. My channel is DawnMichelle1. That's #1 and then L. And that's where you can find these videos there as well. And hopefully we'll be back next Thursday around lunchtime to have more fun with Devo stuff. Also, we're going to be making some more announcements live next week about exciting stuff that I've been working on. And I hope to see you guys tune into those announcements as well. So you guys have a great day. Take care. I can't wait to read all these comments and see everybody who tuned in. It means so much to me. You guys have a beautiful day. Take care.